Oh, hello, and welcome to Dente Rigamortis. I'm Review Cultist.
I'm Mikey, the E stands for evil.
And I'm the gamer in yellow.
And we're here to discuss those internet stories, most creepy and most pasta, and be critically silly doing it. And for Ichor Fall 2018, for the first time. Wait. We're doing Shining One from Above the Clouds. So yes, this is the last of the stories from the collection, Ichor Falls, A Visitor's Guide. Also the first wave of stories by Kris Straub and Sarah Pharris in the Ichor Fall series. Now, before we begin, I'd like to get some things off my chest. There we go.
Feel better now?
Yeah.
That's good.
I was worried I may have been overhyping this last story just a bit. Mainly because of my own fanboyism for the series. As well as my exposure to some outside endeavors, such as RPG podcasts that I thoroughly enjoy, who use this material to adapt and expand and play games inspired by or in the setting. Here's looking at you, RPPR, and the Drunk and the Ugly folks. Probably have been wearing rose-colored glasses over the course of this entire month, or season. And I've also been kind of worried lately that I've been just yelling my opinion over you guys. Mm-hmm. So, or over defending things in the story due to my fanboyism or my favoritism for the series and the content and stuff. Mm-hmm. So it's because of this, I'd actually like to apologize to both of you, Gamer in Yellow, Mikey, the stands for evil, for potentially over defensiveness and being aggressive with my opinion over the last few episodes. I don't know if I will be able to fix that because it's just kind of how I am, but I will try and make an effort in the future.
That's fair.
Because I feel like the last couple of episodes our listeners may have noticed us at each other's throats, Gamer.
Yeah, pretty much.
And it's fine. It's because we have very differing opinions. Mm-hmm. And again, I have kind of rose-colored glasses over the series, so
yeah.
It is kind of hard to it is kind of hard for me to stand by and have somebody have kind of a dissenting view of or opinion of something I love, and not want to defend it. And that's not a good thing to do, to over defend, because that's basically gatekeeping or something like that. So I apologize for stepping over your toes and jumping over your opinion. Because you have your own opinion.
He's sorry.
Okay. With that out of the way...
You want to hug?
Yes.
You want to hug it out? You want to actually hug it out? Is it better?
Yes.
Okay, good.
With that out of the way... I'd hug you, but I fear I'd fall through the cosmos.
Can you become more corporeal, or are you always sort of semi-incorporeal at all times?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I was waiting for the... Yes.
It's my defensive mechanism.
I see.
So that I can subconsciously, not have to worry about people throwing rocks at me.
That's fair.
That's why asteroids take out planets. They're actually just resized rocks.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Nice. Alright, so let's move on to Shining One from Above the Clouds by Sarah Pharris. The second story that she contributed to the collection and I believe the website. I'm not sure if she's done any more.
It can't be on the website. I had to transcribe it for us.
Okay, yeah. Let's quickly let's just do a quick adjustment. So you can check out this on the in the collection. It's the kind of final story that kind of ends the book, and it should be available on the website. However, the link doesn't work. I tried several times on different browsers to hit the read more, but it kept sending me to the front page. So I don't know if it's just a broken link or something like that, but yeah, that kind of needs to be fixed if people want to read this one without spending money.
Wow. And as we established last week, because this is a different author, that it might just be removed just because they're trying too hard or whatever. And
Okay.
because last week it was the accent is like, that's how he speaks. Damn it!
Well, that was a good joke on that.
Yeah. That was
I'm continuing it this week.
okay. Fine.
Fair.
Except this one isn't done by. Okay. Anyways. So, Shining One from Above the Clouds is an excerpt from a basically like from a textbook.
Is it actually though?
No.
Okay.
This is a fictional. As far as I can tell, I tried googling it.
Yeah.
As far as I can tell, Displaced Gods: Mythology Connects Amongst a Forgotten People by Dr. James W. Heyer and published by Bristol Press, St. John's Field, 1917. As far as I know, that is not a actual book. If it is, somebody correct me. But googling it did not find any real results. And it basically just goes on about how the Monoton tribe of West Virginia have a differing Shining One creation myth than other tribes in North America and abroad, because while most ones are about like the people, this one seems to be about a geography, i.e. Ichor Falls and that area. And it goes into the story of Shining One, which is usually portrayed from like.
Let me pause you for a second.
Yeah.
Is the belief of Shining One an actual thing amongst other
Shining
tribes?
One is actually an entity from mythology. So is Trickster, and some of that. But Shining One in this one is depicted more as a villain, this character. As we go into the actual excerpt of the myth, basically Shining One is tormenting the trees and the gods and the animals, and contaminating the land. And the gods and the animals and the trees go to Trickster, the kind of Native American mythological hero character, to try and stop it, but he is afraid to fight Shining One. But the gods are saying, "Hey, we gotta get this guy out of here before humans show up. So go deal with it." And so Trickster goes and confronts him and gets him to go on a race. And like if he wins, he gets a bunch of. If Shining One wins, Trickster has to give him like his eyes, his ears, and his tongue to do stuff to men when they show up. And if Shining One loses, Trickster gets like a bunch of stuff from Shining One. And so they do the race. They race for days until they can't race anymore. And then Trickster just starts stabbing and killing Shining One. And ripping out the parts that he wanted. And throws them all, like, discards them, like, he puts his bones down deep in the earth and they become blackened, and hard, or blackened and brittle. His heart becomes a waterfall. His mind becomes still in the forest. And the only thing that they can't find, like, anybody, like the animals, the trees, the gods, and Trickster, is, Shining One's spirit. And they all try to catch it and they all fail.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that the animals and trees could speak.
Yeah, well, that's actually a very common thing within Native American mythology.
Yeah, but it's important in this because they can speak now. But
And the trees could also move.
Yes, because they do actually. They actually kind of explain like the trees are vibrant, and so then they can move, but they chased the Shining One's spirit so hard and like failed that they became still and like tired, and so that's why we have trees. Mm-hmm. And the animals tried chasing them, but they couldn't and failed, and they became dumb, and normal animals. And then, or animals that we know today.
Yeah.
And then the gods tried, and they failed, and to the point that they were scared, and they just basically, Shining One's spirit chased them away. And Trickster saw all this, and enshrouded Ichor Falls with a mist, and marked, when humans showed up, he marked some of them so that they could know the secrets and truths. And that's kind of how and so they could be keepers of the secret place. And that is basically where the myth ends. For further reading on the Monoton, or Monoton, see Alvord and Bidgood, 1912.
Is that an actual thing?
That is. Alvord and Bidgood were actually people who, wrote books on, Native American, tribes and peoples. So, that is the rundown for Shining One from Above the Clouds. let's go into grammar Nazisms, or grammar inquisitions, because everyone expects it at this point. And the animals and the trees and the animals and the trees of the land called to Trickster, save us from Shining One, for his ways are cruel and his manner is harsh. And Trickster thought and knew that he could not destroy Shining One, for powerful was he and strong was his magic. Oh boy! So this story is almost this excerpt and this myth is almost entirely front ends and occasional front butts. Mm-hmm. Now that said, I'm going to put my opinion on this. I want on the record that this is how a lot of oral histories and myths are told and transcribed in books regarding like Native American mythologies, and like I think even the Bible does a lot of this kind of stuff.
Yep.
But I promise not to gripe too much on my fellow co-hosts on wanting to pick at this if they so choose. And that is my grammar inquisitions, because I didn't really notice anything else. So, Mikey, he stands for evil.
Take another note real quick. I'm going to write something down.
Well, I don't have any.
Okay.
Because I would theoretically only have issue with the first 2 paragraphs, and there's not really much there to look at. So the rest is all transcribed from somewhere.
Yeah.
Hypothetically, so it could also be a translation thing.
Yeah.
So if it's translated...
Well, it was likely translated with whatever the Native American language was.
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure. It's not all Ojibwe.
No.
So, yeah, it would be something else down there.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where a translation would have a lot more ands and buts and things like that because of...
their grammar and their, like, the translation between.
Mm-hmm. So I just sort of gave them a semi-free pass just because it's trying to be like a Bible.
Yeah.
Or in that regard, it's almost
cycle thing.
It's almost dialogue to a degree because of the fact that you're getting it secondhand and whatnot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gamer.
Well, I'm going to start with what I just wrote down, because you both just mentioned it.
Yeah.
Isn't it ironic, don't you think? I think that's the line from a song, actually.
Isn't that ironic?
Yeah. Second story in a row by this author, which has a reason why the story can't be written smoothly. Like, I give you props for coming up with a reason as to why, but it's a little frustrating.
Alright, fair enough.
It's 2 in a row where they're like, I can write it however I want because of this reason. Like, they always have a magical MacGuffin. It's like, it's fine because of this. That being said, I have a title rename, as I did from the last one, and 51, because there are 51 ands in this story. And, like, when your entire story is 854 words, it's bad that 17% of the story is and. That's just me, though.
Okay.
So overall, after looking at the whole thing, there are 9 paragraphs to make up this story, 2 being the intro and outro in italics, so they don't really count. But out of those 9, only 1 of them starts with a proper word to start a paragraph. 6 of them start with and.
Yeah.
It's a little ridiculous. Especially to the point where it's like, and, then the paragraph, and paragraph, and paragraph. It's just, I don't like that. Then, the very first word even of the entire story was of. And I don't think I've seen a story start with a word like that, because it's like the very start of the story is of an interesting parallel between certain vanished African, Inuit, and Asian native groups. That's how it starts. So it's like, of what? You're referring to something previously, but there's nothing there.
Yeah. Yes.
Also, that entire first sentence is a massive run-on.
Holy shit, you're right.
Yeah, I stopped reading.
There's a period halfway through.
No, there isn't. It's a comma.
But a very geographic and tribe-specific location.
Yes, that's the part I'm referring to.
Okay, that's what you mean. Okay, sorry.
But there is a semicolon.
I thought you meant the whole
West
paragraph
Virginia.
was.
I hate those. I just hate those.
You just hate English.
Yeah.
I do, actually.
You hate the English language.
Yeah.
There's a semicolon after West Virginia that just breaks it up halfway.
West Virginia.
Just so you know.
But if you want to properly break it up, just use a freaking period, right?
Wow, but it's continuing the thought. The idea is...
Yeah, but as long as a string of sentences that end with periods are all in the same paragraph, they are all continuing the same thought, right? Like, I know I'm probably ignorant on semicolons, so I need to learn more and get good, but I just find them kind of unnecessary. Moving on, though. This first thing is talking about how this creation story breaks from the others, however, is that it seems it's not a world and mankind creation story, but a very geographic and tribe-specific location. But I don't think it is, because this story is based around the creation of man and the creation of the world.
Well, no, because this one's about a specific... It's before, men are about to show up.
It's about the preparation that has to happen for man's arrival. Meanwhile, it kind of says that it has nothing to do with the creation of man.
I guess from that point of view, yeah, but it's usually it's the Shining One or the creation myths of Native American stuff
have the active creation of man.
The actual creation of man and the world. Whereas this one is again kind of geographically specific, where it's Ichor Falls itself.
But it's also not
right before humans show up.
It's also not though.
It isn't?
No, it can't be geographically locked because otherwise. That chipmunk outside that we saw earlier would be talking to us, and the trees would be walking around because this influenced the whole world.
Yeah, you're unless it
right.
You're not wrong. By thinking that, but it could be since it does say that it's tribe specific in that it is that area. Maybe the animals talked and were a lot more active than other animals around the world until they were here, and now they're lame animals and they're still trees and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, you see, the magic of Ichor Falls allowed the trees to move and the animals to speak, but then this happened. So it was already a magical location in the world, the only spot where these things should happen, and then it was taken away.
And I would be fine with that if it said that, but it does not.
Well, welcome to mythologies. You have to read between the lines and do some subtexting.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah. I'm not saying, it is kind of confusing, but then again, that is mythology in a nutshell.
To a point, yeah. This part, I felt like there should have been some, mention of the Shining One before he's mentioned, because it just goes straight into him. Another way it differs from the others in the quote-unquote the Shining One arc is that it makes little mention of Shining One's people or home. And it's essentially it's saying it differs from what, because I'm asking what is it differing from, because it's not telling me what it's referring to previously.
Well, which in other stories is always mentioned that as being above the clouds or beyond the moon, whereas Shining One appears to be already down.
Yeah, but unless I already know about previous Shining One stories, I have no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah, and this is kind of an out of context. Well, not out of context. This is kind of in media res, throwing you in the shit kind of thing already.
Yeah, it's you need to have context to actually fully understand it.
Yeah.
Well, for further reading, look up.
Yeah. And we missed the context because of an ellipses at the beginning.
Yeah.
What?
There's an ellipses, meaning that, it basically, it's being pulled out from a previous thing.
Ellipses?
Yeah. Right at the very beginning of the Shining One myth, there's an ellipses there.
Oh, there is. Yeah.
So you're not wrong. There's stuff missing.
There is stuff missing. It's just they pulled this excerpt for this story.
Yeah, but again, I kind of have the same feeling that I had from the previous excerpt situation we had, where I don't like just having the middle and not having what's before it, because I need to understand what's going on. It's like if you've never watched Lord of the Rings and you just watch the last one, or just watch the middle one or something, where you have nothing in the previous and after it.
I actually tried that once with but not I watched the Fellowship of the movie, the movie Fellowship of the Ring, and I was like, all right, well, I don't have to read the book. I can just read Two Towers.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be fine.
How did that work out for you?
Well, I got through the first couple of chapters. I got through the first couple of chapters and stopped because it was back when I was not great at reading. And basically it just recapped the end of Fellowship.
Nice.
Because it was basically when Boromir is getting killed by the Uruk-hai, and
no, he's being killed repeatedly by Legolas when Gimli kept hitting his bow, right?
God damn it.
I forget that was from, but that's hilarious.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah. It's like, just recapped the last bit of the movie.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, I mean, if you don't like that kind of, like, just being, like, tossed into media res, like, yeah, you're not going to like this kind of storytelling. So.
Mm-hmm. And then, it's describing itself by using itself to describe itself.
It's referencing something that you need to look up Shining One, what other Shining One stories are about before reading this kind of thing.
Yeah.
I might actually be on a similar page to you once we finish at the end, because I have I have a kind of some conditions to my recommendations on this one. So
yeah, and then just in regards to the title, like the title is Shining One Above the Clouds, but after reading the story, he never goes above the clouds.
It's more like the death of Shining One. The death and rebirth of Shining, or the death and imprisonment of Shining One.
Pretty much, yeah. Like, and at the start it says that, I think it mentions something about clouds at the start, where most of them have Shining One as a creature that's above the clouds or something.
Yeah, and that's actually one of the misses. Like, yeah, it is Shining One above the clouds. Or basically, this whole, like, the Shining One actually is actually where a lot of the conspiracy theories come around of, like, Native American mythology being linked to aliens. Mm-hmm. Because Shining One's in their mythology, Shining One is from above the clouds or from beyond the moon, as it says in the book. So, like, it's sky people, basically.
Oh, okay.
So that's why a lot of like conspiracy nuts and ufologists believe that Native American mythologies can be, like, looked at for evidence of alien encounters.
Okay. So if it was Shining One from above the clouds, not just above the clouds? Because when it says above the clouds, it's talking... Before even reading it, I thought that there was going to be some godlike creature above the clouds that's speaking to someone. But
no,
that doesn't happen.
It's Shining One is that, but he's, like...
Not in this, though. It's a complete back... Like, Shining One above the clouds is what all the other ones are. But
like,
this
maybe that's
story
where it came... It could actually... Like, to interpret... Again, this is interpreting mythology.
From above the clouds.
It could be that he's from that. Like, from above the clouds, yeah. Mm-hmm. Which, it does say, Shining One from above the clouds. Like, that's where it came from. And then, like, he started ruling cruelly over the world.
I don't know why I typed without from down here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it does say that it did say that the animals, like want themselves to be saved from him because his ways are cruel and his manner is harsh. So, like, basically he's ruling over the land from above the clouds, kind of thing. Or, like, he came down and ruled, like, cruelly, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. If he did come down from above the clouds. But again, another situation where if you don't have the context, it doesn't really make sense.
Yeah.
Either way, that's the end of my grammar-related discrepancies.
It is?
Yes.
Okay. Then on to actual thoughts. I'm going to start with a quote. Little is known of the Monoton, save for isolated instances of trading pelts of strange and curious nature. Alvord, 1911. And having what local legends describe as a curious and hesitant nature. Uneasy was their approach, and always did they seem to listen for sounds unheard. Bid good and higher, 1909. Ichor Falls, a place to go to get away from everything. From everything. Also, if my wiki search is to be believed, there's a lot to know about the Monoton people. Like whole articles of them and other tribes that lived in West Virginia. Though perhaps the Monoton people, the Monoton tribe specifically meant reference in this story and in this myth that held this myth cycle of Shining One and the whole Ichor Falls thing could just be like a specific tribe of Monoton or a fictionalized version of the Monoton people. But yeah, because like I looked up, it's like Monoton tribes. They're one of the prominent tribes of West Virginia.
Well, when I looked up Monoton, because I also did,
okay,
what came up was a Wikipedia article that said that they vanished, I think, because they're no longer active, but they were active from the 1400s to the 1600s. Mm. So, for someone to be talking about them in the 1900s and saying their mannerisms seems a little off.
Yeah. Oh, so they were actually kind of a secretive? So were they actually because I perused through it and I couldn't and it seemed like they were
from what I've read.
So. To be honest, it doesn't talk about their mannerisms at all.
Well, it says uneasy was their approach and always did they seem to listen for sounds unheard.
Yeah.
So that's
cautious and...
Yeah, you would expect someone to describe a person, but they've never actually seen them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's talking about the legend.
No, that's talking about...
It does say, and having what local legend describes as a curious and hesitant nature. That is local legend.
Yeah.
So, I mean, legends can be passed down.
Yeah. But, based on what I read, there was the Monitans or Monitans.
Monitans?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they shared a language with another Aboriginal group and probably got assimilated by that one of the other groups. That's why there's not much information on them.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay.
So, it's not necessarily that they disappeared, but their name stopped being because they joined other tribes.
Gotcha.
In my Googling of them, I was playing Secret World Legends and not Googling them. Because I figured you guys would.
Fair enough. Alright, so my final actual thought before we go on to final thoughts. And then the trees cried out, "We see it!" and grabbed at Shining One's spirit. But it moved too fast, and left the trees weak and still. And the animals cried out, "We see it!" and grabbed at Shining One's spirit. But it moved too fast again, and left the animals scared and feeble. And the gods cried out, "We see it!" and grabbed at the spirit. But it was too strong, and scared all the gods away. And Trickster looked around at the still wood, at the dumb animals, and knew Shining One's spirit would not be stopped, though it was tied to that place. And so Trickster caused great mists to form, so that none could find where Shining One remained. And when man came, Trickster put his mark on some of them, and made them keepers of the secret place. As well as adding on to that the whole what happened to the parts of I almost said Secret One, Shining One, where his bones were put down into the ground and deep in the ground, and they turned black and brittle like iron. Mm-hmm. And his heart became the falls, Ichor Falls, and his which actually is interesting. Actually, that makes sense because Shining One is basically an analogous god in Native American mythology. Ichor is technically blood of the gods, in mythology, the description for Ichor or Ichor. The original thing for it is it's blood of the gods. It's what the gods bleed. So the fact that it's called Ichor Falls is actually analogous to that origin. And then his mind was put into a slumber in the woods where
to become a king.
Yeah, exactly. Of the still wood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
no, the Stillwood King is the guardian of
the Stillwood. Basically of the sleeper, yeah. Yeah, because his mind slows as well as that place kind of slows down, I think. So, not exactly an in-depth explanation for stories previously read in this. More of a broad strokes kind of revelation of what's going on in Ichor Falls, or what lies in the mists of Ichor Falls. As well as some hinting at of stories we've read. So I kind of actually, now that we're reading this and I just thinking about that, it kind of reminds me of how we were discussing with was it 30? It was down a narrow dirt road where we were talking about the fog monster.
Yep.
So I think Shining One's spirit could technically be that monster, that fog monster. Mm-hmm. The thing that corrupts, makes things worse in supernaturally. So, but yeah, that's my last of the actual notes for this was that reading it I realized it isn't because I was worried I was overhyping this one because it's more broad strokes, and it kind of I know it got my mind thinking and developing and connecting dots that may not be there, but it is more kind of broad strokes revelation of things that happened in around Ichor Falls. Mm-hmm. But that's my actual thoughts. So, Mikey, these stands real.
Alright. So my first issue is with the first sentence of the story after they explain the excerpt.
The first actual sentence.
Yeah. So, of an interesting parallel between certain vanished African, Inuit, and Asian native groups. So, my issue with that is that I feel that's too broad of a statement.
Yeah.
If you have certain groups, then you already know who those groups are, and you can tell us.
Yeah. Yeah.
The story doesn't like telling us things.
And, I mean, here in Canada we have Inuit. So I traveled to the Eskimo Fortress just to check on their their vanishings, and apparently it's complete hogwash.
Okay.
So,
Oh, well, there you go.
All right.
Mm-hmm. And the one that people will find when they Google Inuit vanishing is the vanishing village of Angikuni Lake.
Okay.
And it's literally just Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, isn't it like an ice city that or like an ice village that just kind of like vanishes or reappears elsewhere? Or like a phantom city? I remember hearing about a myth, like an Inuit myth in like the Northwest Territories, of like an ice city with people that like a phantom city that just kind of like vanishes and appears elsewhere.
Yeah.
And the other thing you'll find when you Google that is an Inuit magician who's famous for making things vanish.
Really?
No.
I would have been interesting.
Yeah. I was trying to think of a clever magician name, but I couldn't, so I just had to drop it anyways.
You what?
Yeah. There you go. You nailed it.
Alright. My next issue, which I have, is who won the race?
A tie.
Yeah.
And then they realized it was going to be a tie, and Trickster was just like, went the dirty route and just fucking started killing Shining One.
But, I mean, if it's a tie, then technically they both win, which means that...
Trickster didn't want to give up his ears, his eyes, and his tongue.
Yeah.
Even though that does kind of seem like the kind of stuff that the Shining One would have to corrupt people in the world now.
Yeah.
So I wonder if there was like some like trade-off. But again, it's not said. We all know
The race is unnecessary.
Yeah.
100% unnecessary.
He didn't want to fight, so he raced it. That's about it.
But the outcome of the race didn't mean anything, and he fought him anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the race was there just to weaken the
Shining.
Shining One.
No, it was there to add length to the story. Because it didn't say that now with Shining One weakened, I could strike. It's just, we raced, we got tired, I killed them. Moving on.
Yeah, I mean, I could say because I could say that it was brought up because that is actually again like races in again like at least stories I've read or legends I've read. Often there'll be like a race or like some kind of competition, but to have like Trickster who is like kind of like one of the big heroic characters of that mythology, just straight up murder the guy is kind of a weird thing at the end. So it's like almost kind of like a breaking or kind of a like deviation from it, like to kind of like show that like this is kind of more of a horror story. Like, because he actually just straight up like this is how this deviates is that Trickster straight up just murders a guy after like because he thinks he's going to lose the race,
or he has lost the race.
Yeah, or he has lost the race. Yeah, he did lose the race, and so he actually just murdered the winner so that he wouldn't win.
I just wish it would say things.
Sorry, man. It's a legend. It's like that's how myths are made. Like that's
just like everything about the whole race really bugs me because like they essentially say, "Come, let's race each other," and then they talk about the winnings, and then Shining One accepts. Then the race starts, but we're not told what the race even was. From the sounds of it, they're just kind of running forever.
Yeah, that's how like the mythology would have done it. Would have traded it.
And that's just they raced for days and nights until they finally could race no more. So like again, we have no winner.
Yeah.
And then he just kills him.
And then he just gets killed. And then like that's how like all these other things like kind of become part of Ichor Fall's mythos.
I just wish he would say things. Or he's like,
you wanted a more traditional narrative. Well, you wanted a more like a more modern narrative to this.
I just want a little bit of like rational thinking. Like even at the end, like you don't have to say it immediately, so you can surprise the reader even. But like they do the race, and then after the race, we're both tired. Like I lost, but whatever. But now that he is tired, I can kill him because he is weakened. It doesn't say anything about weakening him. It's just they race until they couldn't race anymore.
The thing is,
death.
There is a thing in storytelling that is called subtext and reading between the lines. And yeah, if you just read this at face value, you're not like it's going to be like that. But if you like think on it a little bit, like it does have like yeah, that's why the race was there. Like it was basically to tire out Shining One so that he could murder him. or it's to deviate from the usual narrative of this mythos where Shining One, or like they would have had a race, and usually Trickster would win or would win through some kind of cunning. But no, he just straight up just murders murders his adversary, which is a little bit I think might be a little bit out of place for that narrative. Mm-hmm. Again, to add a little bit more to the horror element of the story, or for like the overall setting and stuff. But yeah.
Yeah.
My next note here is a question, which is, what is the moral of this story? Because a lot of Native American stories have a message or a moral, something that
this isn't about a moral. This is news. This is just what actually happened. This is factual evidence.
Yeah. Well,
if someone's in your way, kill them.
Yeah. If you think you're going to lose, kill your opponent. Yeah. Or stop.
They'll never expect it. That's how road rashers.
Yeah, it's more. Yeah. It's more like again, like Gamer said, it is kind of more just like it's less about telling a message and more just explaining the origin of Ichor Falls is like kind of main like thing or aspects, and being horrific. Because like they basically get rid of the meaning of they basically get rid of the message, which probably would have been if this had been like an actual trickster thing. He would have lost the race. Trickster probably would have lost the race, and like would have had to come up with some other way to either get out of not giving him his parts or give his parts up to Shining One. Mm-hmm. And that would have been the moral. Like don't go over your, or like it would have been basically don't be cocky or something like that, or
don't get PSC.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's just one of those things that sort of in the back of my mind. I was like, well, why isn't there something there? Because that would have made it more authentic feeling, I guess.
Yeah. Well, they do say at the beginning, like this deviates heavily from those stories, and this is why. Mm-hmm. It's because there is no message. It's horror. Mm-hmm.
Or all the other stories are where they take this story and
we're gonna add messages.
Yeah, add messages and make it nice.
Yeah, exactly. We're gonna add some messages to this.
Well, this is like the 100% like transcribed story from like MNN
so
from back then.
Like this is
Monotone News Network. Like this is just them like copy and pasted it over. Like this is the actual facts. Yeah.
And this is I was before you went into that silly thing. Yes. I was gonna say this could be actually this is the root of all the Shining One myths, and they just kind of like changed it over the years kind of thing. Yeah.
So that's my thoughts on this that haven't already been touched on. So.
All right, Gamer.
Okay. I had a little bit of a problem with how sudden the story starts. And I don't mean the start of the whole thing with whatever the hell that is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. With the actual story starting, where it starts with ellipses and animals.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. It was just so sudden because it's written completely different from the previous because it's littered with ands.
Yeah.
And all that. And the only real and it doesn't have like references to other people like Bidgood and Hare and all that. Mm-hmm. But the only real tell that the story is actually starting now is that it is slightly indented.
Yeah.
And it's only noticeable on the Google Doc that I wrote up. In the book, it's like two lines from the bottom. It's hard to see. It's hard to notice it's even there.
Yeah, there's like an indent. Like it's like they tabbed a little bit, but that's about it.
But it's right at the bottom of the page. It's hard to even notice it's there.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised they didn't do like a quote, like on the start, and then like just basically left the quote until the very end. Or, like, quote it, like, because, like, it is kind of like an oral tradition thing, so, like, it is technically dialogue, as well as being, I know, Dave.
So it's got double MacGuffins.
Calm down, gamer.
Akimbo MacGuffins.
Yeah, like, so I'm just surprised that, like, they didn't do something more with the,
yeah, like, if they just put in, like, and here's the uniquely told story of the Shining One told by the Manhattan. Yeah. Then that would fill in the last couple of lines there, and then have everything tabbed over, and give a clear distinction between backstory and the actual story. Then, next quote is, then the other gods came to Trickster and said, soon man will be on Earth, and you must go and stop Shining One, for man cannot bear such evil. And then, again, this is the second time where I'm like, so this is, in fact, a story about world and mankind creation, and not about just some geographical situation.
Well, no, this is, like, geographical and tribe specific, because Yeah, man's going
we
to show.
did.
Yeah, we did that.
Anyways, yeah. And the only other thing I have written down really that we haven't already talked about is just I wrote down I assumed that your big revelation with this you call this that the Shining One being bound to Ichor Falls in that it's essentially it's the reason that everyone's lives are getting messed with essentially.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
That and his finding out where why there's because it does actually geographically create things in this world based off Shining One again, his bones are basically the iron, and his heart is where the falls were created.
Did it say that they're iron?
It specifically... Well, it doesn't say it, but again, it's subtext. His bones were buried deep in the earth where they became black and brittle. And the town has an iron mine.
Is iron brittle?
Yeah, it's black and hard. Brittle is another word for hard. Or is another type and aspect of hardness. And
not necessarily.
Actually, I believe in one of the stories, it said that they had to use a process on the iron because it was brittle.
Okay, then
but then the falls were created by his heart, and his mind was created. His mind basically created the still wood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are the revelations. Again, and I will fully admit, I may have also just read deep into the story, as I like to do.
It's not blackened and brittle; it's just blackened and hardened.
Blackened and hardened. So iron basically. At least, again, it's an interpretation.
Or it's fossilized.
Or coal. It could also be just it could have become coal.
Or they're just fossils.
Well, usually if it's black and hardened, it's not fossils, it's coal.
So you're saying the Shining One was actually a dinosaur?
Yes.
Ooh. From above the clouds. Some space dinosaurs. It was a goddamn dinosaur laser fight. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Ninja party. Oh shit. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
But yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Like I said, my broad. I realized reading the story, it's more or less broad strokes across what's kind of the origin of things in Ichor Falls, and not specific stories kind of thing. Except for maybe the Stillwood is probably the clearest one.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, it doesn't say it's that in that one specific area. It just says the wood, the trees stopped moving.
No, he said, his mind was put in the woods, and, I need to... Sorry, I do need
Well, I know,
to...
but the Stillwood King isn't in all forests. He's in one specific forest.
Yeah, but again, it says this isn't, all over the place. It's geographically locked. Right at the beginning, it said that it was,
Yeah, but it also affects the entire world. Because all the trees don't move.
Well, those ones don't move. But, even before that, though, like I said, there was, when they cut up Shining One, where is it?
Oh, I know. His mind goes into the trees, and the trees become still.
Yeah. Fell into a grease and was hidden in the great woods, where it slept and dreamed, and made much confusion in the woods as well. So, yeah, again, it's... And I could just be overthinking it, and looking too deep into the story, but that's kind of where I like to go.
Essentially, the differences with our thoughts is you're reading between the lines, and you're potentially using all of the extra knowledge you have from other things you've read afterwards, and I'm treating it at face value.
Yeah.
Which is apparently how you're not supposed to read this.
Well, no.
I mean... because then you hate it.
Well, no, again, we just, you have, you do that, that's how you read stories. It has to be straightforward. It can't, right? You don't want, illusions.
I hate it when I have to write half the story myself.
Yeah, and, then you're not going to like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Alright, so... Final thoughts then. So yeah, the only so Alvord and Biggood, it says for further reading, look all the Monetan, look up Alvord and Biggood, 1912. So Alvord and Biggood, as I found out, were actual people, and so really the only thing that was kind of falsified or fabricated for the story and stuff was probably the book and the author from the previous one. Because trying to Google that, I could not find James
W. Hare.
Yeah, James W. Hare. Or his book.
It's what hair, actually.
Yeah. So, that was clearly just fabricated, and the story as it was just kind of a fictional retelling of a Native American legend, and things added to it to give Ichor Falls its spooks, basically, an origin. And personally, as a final piece in this collection, I do think it works. That said, I'm not sure it would work solely on its own. I think that if you get the collection, or you read through the website, and this is available on the website, It's a good complementary story for like reading everything. Like if you're reading all the Ichor Fall stories anyways, this might be a good cap for it, or at least a good like addition to it. But otherwise, either through lack of meaningful context and length, at best I could give it a partial recommendation. So, that is my opinion. So, Mikey, these stands for you.
Yeah, I'm gonna probably be on the same sort of page, because as a standalone, it's not that great. Like, the fact that it says certain vanished tribes or groups, and it could easily specify, because they're certain.
Yeah.
That
it's already skipping over a lot of information, though, and not telling you things.
Yeah,
so.
And that was the very first sentence. But it was like certain whatever. Like, okay, well, tell me. It's the beginning. And then I would have been happier if it had a moral or some things like, and that's why the trees are still and the animals don't talk. And
well, that is why.
That is
but,
why.
I mean,
to
add that extra bit to it, like as if someone's saying it, which is
as it is. It kind of it kind of stops being a moral story that like Native Americans would have for their legends, and becomes like I will agree. Actually, by the end, it kind of becomes just more of a horror story, because like everything's crappy. And the best thing that Trickster, the hero of the day, can do is just hide it from the world with mist. And like when people show up, mark a few of them to safeguard everything.
Yeah.
Essentially, the writer of this actual story from the past was like the original horror author kind of deal. Like he took an actual legend that had a moral and there was a reason for it to be retold, and he's like, I'll just twist that.
Yeah.
And make it weird.
And then the Trickster in the story is just plain lazy. It's like they come to him like, do this. I'm like, I don't wanna.
I'm not going to claim to be an expert on Trickster. But from the sounds of it, he does have like while yes, he is like a heroic character in their myths. He is also sometimes lazy, and usually he's kind of like, and sometimes likes to do things like that make things easier for him.
Here's my problem with Trickster. I don't understand why everyone's going to him for help when there's gods around. Like, the gods go to him. Doesn't that make him a god more than the gods are?
Yes. It's... This is why I said that the story doesn't really do well on its own, because you need some more further reading.
And continuing on, the whole sort of tying it to other Ichor Fall stories is sort of a nice touch, like the whole heart being the falls, and it's like, oh, the falls are cursed.
And then the woods are cursed, and the iron is cursed.
Have the falls actually been in any of the stories specifically?
The falls have been in Cedar Springs, because the Cedar Springs gated community is built right next to them.
Yeah, because you can feel the mist.
Yeah,
but nothing actually happens at the falls
that we've seen yet. Like we haven't remember like. These are all the stories these are all the first stories that Chris Straub and Sarah Pharris wrote. Mm-hmm. There are other submissions on the website that we'll probably get to next year.
Yeah.
Tune in then. But yeah, like as far as I know, like I haven't seen one that specifically says like includes the falls, other than Cedar Springs. Yeah. Well, again, Ichor Falls is the town, but it's also the big geographic landmark. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you think the fall, especially with the falls now being like revealed to be like the heart of this monster, you'd think that would be a case. But so like, I wonder if like there could be a story where like they go into like a cave or something underneath the falls, or like where the falls originate or something like that, is like a really thick area that like rarely anybody can check out. And when you go there, there's just this like giant beating heart that's just pumping out the water that comes through comes down the river.
Yeah, totally.
That would be actually fucking creepy as hell. Like, it'd be some cool like. All right, I'm gonna have to start writing that one.
Or the other way to look at it is, this is all a legend, and none of this is actually in the lore. This is just what the people in the lore talk about, but none of this actually happens.
But then, why would you bother writing that?
That's my question exactly.
But it's in the collection, so it's canon.
Oh, yeah.
And again, it is just innuendo and like again, like you said, legends and some of that. So it's really up to your interpretation when it comes down to it.
You're going to say something, Mikey?
Yes.
You're laughing to yourself quietly.
Yeah. I was just thinking about the naming structure for Ichor Falls, and what if it's just a miscommunication? Sort of like how Canada was named, because there's the heritage moments way back when they used to air all the time on TV, and it has a guy coming to Canada for the first time, and he's talking to the Aboriginals, and he's basically mistranslates and says, oh yeah, the name of this nation is Canada, when it's actually the name of a village.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's neat.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there could be some sort of miscommunication. So Ichor Falls has nothing to do with the falls.
I mean, technically Ichor Fall. Okay, yeah, technically Ichor Falls, like
the word Ichor and the word
Ichor
falls
is...
just happen to mean something in English.
Well,
it means something completely different in the native language.
Well, the thing is, Ichor is Greek for God's blood.
Okay.
Like, it's actually, and that's actually one of the things you'll notice actually in the visitor's guide, in the little like blurb on like the town itself, like in all the redevelopments and stuff. Mm-hmm. All the districts of the town are Greek words, like Olympias or like Elysium and stuff like that. So there's also like a kind of a Greek wording stuff to it as well, but it's Native American.
Yeah.
Like there's like a lot of Native American like roots in the supernatural stuff.
But it sounds cool.
Yeah, exactly. That's probably what it was. Also, there's actually a lot of Greek towns in like New England area, like especially like Pennsylvania area. There's a lot of like Athens and Sparta and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But anyway, yeah.
So you basically just ruled that out. There's just some Greek guy came and was like, I'm going to name this Ichor Falls.
Yes.
It's a good name.
Well, what I'm saying is like the Greek guy, or like some Greek guy, or some like whoever founded the town itself, could have talked to the Native Americans, like the Manitans, like some like descendant of the Manitans or something like that, and they told them the story about the heart on the fall, or became the falls. And it's like, oh well, shining one's like a god. Well, it's like Ichor, so it's like Ichor Falls.
Or what happened is when the people came there to like settle, the natives were there, and their leader thought that he was a god. And then the people that were coming in to encroach on their place, they had a battle with the god at the top of the falls, and then they killed him there.
Yep.
To take over the land. So his blood went through the falls.
I was gonna say
God, blood, falls, Ichor Falls. That's what we'll name it.
Well, bam.
Yeah.
I was gonna say so it's like the road to El Dorado, where the natives think that the characters are like the Spaniards are gods when they show up.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then you're like, they have this big battle. And it's like, okay, it's nothing like Road to El Dorado.
No, not right.
It's the more gritty road to El Dorado.
The road to Ichor Falls.
Yep.
God. Why are we so stupid?
I ask myself that every day.
Anyway, so for recommendation-wise, it's a partial recommendation.
Okay.
Like, as it's on its own, no.
Yeah.
But if you can make those connections to the other stories, then it's a yes. So it's that
Partial,
yeah.
And gamer.
Nah.
All right.
No, I can say more about that. My problem with this is you can't just kind of pick it up and read it. You have to have background information. Yeah. And the problem is they tell you where to get the background information at the end of the story.
Yeah.
If that was at the start, then it could be saying this story has elements from this in it. You would have to read this to fully understand it. Okay, then I would be fine with that. But it gives fake information at the start, which you can't reference to get background information, and then it feels like it starts in the middle of things, and there's no...
You didn't like it because it was out of context, and...
Yeah, it's completely out of context, and a lot of things weren't even said in the story, and like Mikey said, there's no moral to the story, there's no reason that it would be carried on through generations being told over and over again, if there's no moral behind it, because why would you bother? And because a lot of things aren't mentioned, you have to assume a lot of things, and I hate assuming.
You'd also think that, if Trickster, marked people to be the keepers of the secret place, why the hell is this legend being told over and over again? Like, why is that part of the legend?
What do you mean?
That he marked people? Like, isn't that kind of alert people that there are people in the area that are keepers of the secret place and stuff like that?
Well, that's the Stillwood King.
That is interesting. I didn't think of that. I was thinking again, like
Lemon Blossom Girl.
Oh, actually, I was thinking Horticulture Society. But again, that I will blatantly say that is both from you and also RPG games I've listened to, like actual plays of, where from Ugly or Drunk in the Ugly, they did a mini campaign set in Ichor Falls because their Sam Gravener really loves Ichor Falls. Like, actually, he's the one that got me got me actually kind of get the collection because I wanted to like look more into it and stuff. And his rendition of the events and stuff that go on in Ichor Falls, like he has like there's a secret order in the town that is like keepers of the secret place and stuff like that. So I will fully admit that my opinion on that is from an outside source, an expanded universe thing, if you will, legends.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So I'm sure if I did research and did like more reading on this, I would enjoy it more. But as it is, at face value, didn't really like it.
That's fair.
So yeah, that's I don't know.
All right. No, like if you didn't like it, you didn't like it. Like
it might also partially be because my expectations were a little high.
Sorry.
I ties everything together so good. Oh, we'll see.
And then as the story, as the last 2 or 3 stories went on, I was like, oh shit. I may have overhyped this. This is why, audience, you don't overhype things.
No.
Because the expectations are always going to be more than what can be delivered.
Mm-hmm. Don't take the hype train. Just walk along the tracks. You'll get there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Maybe not. Yeah, walk along the tracks. Don't walk on the tracks, because then you're going to get hit by the hype train.
I mean, as long as you're behind the hype train. The hype train's going.
But then there's another train behind that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true.
I think the problem is that review cultists threw us on the hype train tracks, knowing the hype train was coming.
I see. That's true.
And then when I went to try and grab the hype train, I missed it, and I was like, "Oh shit, this isn't gonna be great at all."
No. Then you look at your phone. It's like, "Oh, my battery's dead. I can't even warn them that it's coming."
No.
They're like a mile up the tracks. Damn.
Yeah. Well, that's it then.
Yeah.
All right. So that was Ichor Fall for 2018. We will probably go back to Ichor Fall next year. With the expanded stories, just to see what other stories from Ichor Falls are, what other people have kind of contributed to the universe of it. That is our week. That is our week's episode. So if you like what you heard, if you did, leave us a comment in the comment section below. Wherever this gets posted, whether it be on Kiwi6, Facebook, YouTube, or Tumblr. You can also talk to us on Twitter. Mikey is at the East End Cerebral. The Gamer in Yellow is at the Gamer in Yellow, but without the W, because Twitter hates him as much as Xbox does.
Just like every other format. My name is too long.
Yep. I'm at Review Cultist. You can send us a rating and review on iTunes or any streaming site that has our show on it. You can also send us emails at aldenterigamortis@gmail.com. That's aldenterigamortis@gmail.com. Where you can also leave us suggestions for other creepypastas you'd like to discuss on the show. If you'd like to check out the title cards for each episode, you can go to crazonstudios.tumblr.com, crazon.deviantart.com, or our YouTube channel, where you can check out the videos of each episode, Al Dente Rigamortis on YouTube. And if you'd like to help support the show, you can go to Patreon. Look up Al Dente Rigamortis and select the backer tier you'd like to support us at. Currently we have $2 and $5 tiers, but really any donations help. $2 tier and $5 tier will get you early access, special episodes, early access,
special episodes, early access.
All right.
Also, early access.
Yeah. Really hammering in that $5 promotion.
Yeah.
Special episodes include, we have Al Dente Real Talk, where we talk about films that either were inspired by creepypastas or the inspiration for creepypastas or have similar themes in horror. There's also Actual Play Rigamortis, where we run tabletop games that are horror-themed and most of the time loosely based on creepypastas or creepypasta-esque tropes and themes. And from my two co-hosts, sans me, we have...
Al Dente Reloaded at the $5 tier, where Mikey and I go back to the old pastas that the cultist and the doctor read in the past, read them ourselves, and see what our thoughts are on them. And Al Dente Revelations at the $2 tier, where Mikey and I continue those thoughts from Reloaded, after listening to the old episodes that the cultist and the doctor did, and possibly have a mind-breaking revelation while doing so.
All right.
And also criticize the art.
Yes.
Because it's necessary.
Sure.
Sure it is. You say so. Wish you would stop.
No.
There's a race. Stop.
And to our patrons that are already helping support the show, thank you immensely. You're helping keep those hosting bills at bay, and we very much appreciate that. And to our listeners and the authors of these stories, thank you. Because, well, listeners, if you weren't listening, we really wouldn't have much of a show to keep going. And to the authors, we definitely wouldn't have a show to keep going because we wouldn't have stories to keep discussing and reading. And that's how I started this whole show. So, thank you immensely. So, until next time, I've been your host, Review Cultist.
I'm Mikey. E stands for evil.
And I'm the gamer in yellow.
And this has been Al Dente Rigamortis. Sleep well.